As long as you don't end up in the hospital, that's fine. All right. We need one NDI source. There we go. All right. Testing. Everybody give me tests.
Test.
Test.
All right, see Farsight, let us know if the sound is good.
Man, he is on point.
All right. Okay, welcome everybody to Can Amber TV for our slightly later start time. This is Custodes Tactica episode 42. Can you guys believe I've done 42 episodes just talking about Custodes? It's a little bit crazy. All right, and tonight we are reviewing the the updated Forgeworld rules. And tonight I have with me people who have been on the show before. We've got Devin over on my right here, who is still playing Custodes. And are you top now? We don't have many events right now, but as of last showing, you were somewhere near the top, if not at the top.
Number 1 ranked in Canada, I think, still. And Custodes, I'm there with my slew of RTTs that I've gone to.
Yeah, and I guess the Stud and Scrub didn't have any. That was...
that's until some point when the plague's not killing everybody.
Yeah. It's not looking good. Anyway, for some reason, there seems to be tons of events elsewhere in the world where people are not so worried about COVID, I guess. And then we have Yoshi Diogopita coming back, and we have our little, as we call it, the little brain trust here to discuss these rules. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're just going to go through each data sheet. There aren't that many. And what's changed, and talk about whether these guys are winners, losers, and how we might see them playing out in lists. And Yoshi, because he's been playing a little bit, not as much Custodes recently, but more other armies, constantly thinking of ways of beating Custodes, will give us his opinion from the other side and things we can look out for that people might be using, other than just saying Eradicators all the time, which is what people tend to be doing these days, just saying Eradicators. All right. Before we start, if you're new to Custodes, the Forgeworld released a bunch of rules for our Forgeworld made custodian 30k Custodes units a while ago, a couple of years ago, I guess now. They were beta, and then they've been edited a few times. And so over time, they've become officially a part of our codex, even though they are not technically part of our codex. And we're really probably the only army that is split like this fairly evenly, half Codex GW, half Forgeworld, pieces of paper. And so now that GW's taken over the writing of Forgeworld rules, and this compendium that they're releasing next week is basically 4 previous books all rolled into one book. We are seeing a little bit more solidarity of rules, not just for us, but for everybody. And things in the Forgeworld book are no longer super crazy out of whack. They're generally in line with what's going on with 9th and what's going on with some of the couple of new books we've seen already, the trends that are going on. So that's good news for everybody, because the reason people hated Forgeworld before is because you just have random stupid shit that was just ridiculously good, or like it was just seemingly out of left field. And so hopefully if these rules become more mainstream, then people won't have such a big, thing about allowing Forgeworld. There's still people out there who believe that all Forgeworld should just be banned. So we'll see. Okay. What do you guys think of the rules in general? Do you think it's what you expected? Do you think it's crazy? Do you think it's good, bad?
Dev, you want to go first or no?
Like you talking about Custodes or just like everything in general?
Either or.
Custode stuff is basically what I expected. Not much really changed. The stuff that did change is kind of what I was hoping for. Some stuff didn't change that I was hoping for. More generally, like a lot of things got nerfed. Especially if you're like a Space Marine, a lot of that got nerfed. Most of the time, just absolutely useless. All the Chaos factions lost all their stuff unless they're Chaos Marines. So, yeah.
Even Elder got hit a little bit.
Elder made out like bandits in this. Holy crap.
They lost some things, but like those are things that people really weren't taking. But like Shadow Specters, oh baby.
Raptors, Hornets, the Lynx is insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, so one thing I really wanted this book to do was to get rid of models, rules that don't have models. It really annoys me about Forgeworld that there's a crap ton of data sheets for things that you can't buy. And so they haven't gotten rid of all of those, and there will be Legends releases apparently, but they've gotten rid of a whole bunch of those. Mostly Space Marine characters, to be honest, but there's been a few other things too. And so just cleaning that shit up that really needed to be cleaned up. And so, like I said, it's 4 books previously, now condensed into 1 book. So that's been a big improvement. And so no, you don't get these silly Forgeworld data sheets turning up that nobody has a model for. Okay, well, let's dive right in. The first thing we're going to talk about is the Guardians. So the Guardians, specifically with the Pyrothite and the Adricite spears. So these guys, so one of the things that they did was they denoted what's core and what's not core, and it's basically the same as Space Marines. So everything is core except for vehicles, basically, and including Dreadnoughts are core too. So throughout our book, these things have been made core. So these guys are core, obviously, and they surprisingly, I don't know if this surprised you guys, the Pyrothite spear got the Melta rule, although it went up 5 points. Do you think they were going to get the Melta rule?
I personally thought so, yeah. I think they're trying to make all like Melta things be the same, so it's just easier across the whole board. You don't have any random like differences, like this one's different than that one. It's all pretty much the same.
Yeah, I guess I half expected them not to get it because they didn't get it in the big FAQ, but then this was like, there's still that GW Forgeworld divide, and they knew this book was coming, so probably why they didn't include it, but yeah. Do you think it's worth 5 points?
That's if your question. It definitely makes the Adrathic somewhat more of a tempting option, but not really because of Sagittarium Guard, which I'm sure we'll get to in a second. But the Melta Spears, in my view, when I was playing them, they rely heavily on taking transport vehicles, which, like, the Grav Carrier got a little bit cheaper, the Land Raider is still the Land Raider, but both of them are absolutely irrelevant because of Eradicators.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, so the problem these guys have is the one-shot, short range, and you've got Sagittarium, which do the same and have other shooting too. So, yeah, 60 points too, which is 5 more than Sag.
That being said, 5 Melta Spears, if you can get them close, if you put archaic munitions on them, they can do an absolutely nuts amount of damage to something.
So, and now with the +2, I mean, if that was something you were already doing, then for an extra, 25 points for that unit, which takes them close to 300 now, that's a lot, but they will do a lot. And we don't know, probably, maybe, Salvo Bikes will get Melta Rule, maybe. I don't know. They didn't get it already, though.
But, like, the Melta Spears have more of a use than Wardens. They have
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so overall, an interesting change, something to keep in mind, but not super compelling as of right now. And as always, these guys do need to get into the action due to short range. Okay, well, let's move on to Sags then. So Sagittarium, I think, made out pretty well. They basically were unchanged. They got the core keyword, but most importantly, their volley profile, which is basically a heavy bolter profile, even though it's not a heavy bolter, went up to 2 damage. Which puts them at possibly 6 damage on that profile, and then 3 damage from the Adrathic profile. One dude doing 9 damage is pretty decent.
Seems good. It seems pretty good, right? He could one-shot a Dreadnought.
He could. The nice thing about them is that they're probably their biggest direct comparison across armies would be the Space Marine Heavy Intercessors. Heavy Intercessors, 28? These guys are
29.
3 with the Misericordia. So, like, it's basically like 2 Heavy Intercessors to 1 Sagittarium, and the Sagittarium compare very, very, very well to that.
Yeah.
Wise, combat-wise, like, they're just solid. The problem with them before was that they their bolter fire just didn't really do anything. It was like 1 damage, piddly, strength 5 shots, but 2 damage goes a long way. Now they're clearing off Primaris, they can threaten vehicles. Without getting a points increase on top of that, I think they're competing with Shield Guard for probably the best troop in the Custode army right now.
Yeah, And that's the problem I've already come upon. Making my patrol or whatever. Like, do I take Shield Guard, who have that like 1-up, 3-up now? Don't kill that much as Sagittarium probably, or do you take the Sags? 5 of those guys putting out a decent amount of firepower down the field.
It's their range stayed at 30.
36 right? For the bolt volley.
It's on the bolt number, and the Drathic's what?
I think
15 or is
I think
it
it's 15.
Yeah, so that's plus 3 inches because it was 12 inches before.
Yeah, they gained 3 inches. Yeah, like I don't know. If it was up to me, I'd be taking Sag all the time now, because at least they can sit back, still be your troop, and now they can actually do a lot of damage at what is pretty popular, which is Space Marines, and now they're killing full Space Marine models, well, Primaris models.
I think obviously you want to have these guys in the reroll 1 bubble for hits because they go up to 3-up to hit, which can be a little bit unreliable on your 1 Adrathic shot anyway. But assuming that Trajan or Shield Captain's usually around, or even a Dread with the strat, then it becomes much more reliable there. I did write a list where I had a battalion with 2 units of 5 Sags and then 1 unit of Shield Guard. That was very solid, but that's a lot of points. You're sinking back into this whole battalion tax issue that we used to play with in 8th. So I don't know, but Sags are pretty compelling right now.
Yeah, they're definitely worth a look. I think between them and Shield Guard, it's not that one unit is definitively better than the other. It's just personal choice and what you want. Which, as far as internal balance goes, is like a really good place to be. Like, nothing is like an obviously correct or an obviously incorrect.
Yeah. I think you just pick what you need from that unit to do in your games, and then they'll both do what they're supposed to do, which is great. Don't feel bad for picking one because you like the model better or whatever. So cool. Okay, so Sags came out pretty well. All right, let's move on to the Aquilon Terminators. So Aquilon got a bunch of changes. So their fire pikes went up to 15 inches from 12 inches. So that's okay. The Lastrum bolters throughout the Forgeworld rules actually were unchanged. So they're still 5, -1, same profile. The twin Adrathic Destructors went down 5 points, which is good because they were 15 before, which is quite a lot. And their fists are now flat 2 damage. Now, we could be really salty and say I wish they were flat 3, but I will take flat 2 over D3 any day.
We'll take 2 over D3 any day of the week.
The whole army should get damage 2. D3 is like the worst damage.
So hopefully this is a positive sign for the future book, and that is certainly a trend that we've seen in the Marine book. D3 going away. Yeah. So hopefully this is the first of many, fuck yous to D3. And the fists are also now free, which is good. I mean, it's kind of rolled into the cost. So now a fist, sort of previous standard loadout of a fist in the Lastrum is now 75 points down from 80 points. Only 5 points more than a Alaris Terminator now. That kind of 10-point gap was like a little bit of a mental barrier before, but
it was essentially it was the 10-point gap. The Alaris have a lot of utility in them, so that I think shifted people a lot towards the Alaris. Now though, it's definitely
it's a tough one. Alaris still have that one the stratagem that's only what's it called relative to them that I don't think Aquilon get, right?
And snipe characters for 2 CP, and they can make their grenade launchers make stuff -1 to hit them.
Yeah, the sniping characters is nice, but I don't know. Now only 5-point difference, and the 2 damage is just really selling me. Like I'd almost always take Aquilon now.
And Strength 10 actually goes a long way in melee against Marines because there's a lot of grab there at the moment. So
yeah, exactly. Grabbers is gonna be very popular.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would almost always take Aquilon now over Alaris.
And the interesting thing with the Adrathic getting cheaper, it actually makes it more viable. Now, if you're not taking a big unit to use the double shoot strat with, like something like Venatari, believe it or not, the Lastrum actually outperforms against intercessor bodies and is slightly worse against a through body than the Adrathic. But remember, the bolt weapons require stratagem use to remain viable. And if you're shooting at something like salamanders, you're going to want the -3 because they're just going to ignore your -1 with their chapter tactic. So with the closer disparity or the less disparate points, it actually makes the Adrath a lot more tempting as a weapon. So again, like they're going better with the internal balance. That being said, though, there's no reason to take the Lightning Claw anymore, and the Flamer is still completely pointless. So
so Flamer remains pointless, and Lightning Claw is as pointless as ever. That Fist, Strength 10, flat. Oh yeah, it's nice. And like it's always like you hit like 30 times, and then you do like 10 damage because of freaking rolling 1s and 2s on D3. Like it is so annoying.
Yeah, and like against some Gravis stuff, could you imagine like you roll 3 1s in a row? It's like it took 3 attacks to just kill one guy, and that's assuming he doesn't have feel no pain, which most of them will.
Like when I charged Sam's freaking Sanguinary Guard that one time, and 6 Alaris killed 2.5 Sanguinary Guard because I just rolled like crap.
It always happens. Always happens. And so that's great. And then, as you say, so that Adrathic, so somebody mathed it out in the Discord. The Lastrum only compares, as you say, against those kind of bodies. Once you go to 3 wounds, the Adrathic takes over, and without superior fire patterns on the Lastrum, it well blows by Lastrum.
That's patterns. You need that Lastrums to work.
Yeah.
Whereas the Adrathics, you're paying a little bit more points, but you don't have to have that CP expenditure.
Yeah. And, at a pinch, you could plop off 3 to 6 wounds off a tougher target, too, if you really need to, because you're throwing out enough shots. And you're often wanting to use the superior firing patterns on the Venatari. So, then you're not just sucking your thumb with your Lastrums firing only 4 times a person.
Yeah.
Okay, these guys got core, obviously, and so, I was already picking Aquilon over Alaris on my more recent lists, but this has kind of cemented them in as the guys of choice, especially with the option to run the Adrathics now. So my current list, I do have them with Adrathics, just to see how that goes, and feels good. Feels like a good life choice. We'll see how that goes. I guess it depends on your meta, really.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go on to the Dreads. So the Dreads made out pretty good. Our 2 Dreads, the Achilles and the Galatus, just weren't seeing much play, and maybe they still won't see that much play, but they're certainly got better with this update. So we'll start with the Galatus for now, which I literally just put together and primed. It was actually the first Forgeworld model I ever bought, but I never assembled it until yesterday.
I have one too somewhere.
Yeah, it's just our 2 Dreads are possibly, in my opinion, the 2 best looking Dreadnoughts in the game. So it'd be cool to be able to play them. Okay, so the Galatus is core. It lost 1 wound from 10 to 9, but now no longer degrades, which I think is way better.
Awesome. Yeah. Way better.
Way better. And then it got
really better. They picked.
Sorry.
Right. They picked up an attack each too, right? All the Dreads, I think.
Yeah, they gained an attack and the -1 damage.
So the Galatus is up to
Duty Eternal.
Sorry, Devin.
Duty Eternal for free is like. Really good.
And they went down 5 points.
Yeah, so I'm happy to see that they got the free -1 damage, like with all the Marine Dreads, so that's great, because that would have been an area of salt for sure. And it went extra attack. It's at 5 attacks, 6 with Eternal Penitent, and it gets D3 from the sword, so you could have up to 9 attacks with this guy. And the Flamer is 12 inches now instead of 8, and it keeps its 4-up invuln, and it's still -1 to hit in combat, and it's 5 points cheaper at 170 points all in. So the Galatus only got better.
Yeah, I was ready, when I was writing lists before, I was already trying to run 2 of them. This only makes me want to run 2 of them even more.
Yeah, and of course his is strength 7, I believe, which is a little bit disappointing, but -3, flat 3 damage.
But it still has the pinball, it's still -1 hit in combat, so it has that defensiveness going for it, which I think is really worth it now, given all the high AP weapons that exist. It'll actually live long enough to maybe do something, which is good.
Yeah. As always, the problem with our dreads is delivery. They move pretty fast. They move 9 inches. So with an advance, they're moving pretty fast. But, delivery is the thing. You got to get them into combat. You can drop them. You can dread host. I mean, you can
Dread
homer,
host,
I
yeah.
guess.
Yeah.
So, they definitely have play now. And the comparison between Galatas and the Achilles now are much more compelling. As Devin, you've pointed out, it's about when everything is kind of equally good, then you can really make true choices, right? Okay, so the Achilles then basically got the same treatment, so -1 damage natively. It got an extra attack. Its flamers, if you run the flamers, are now 12 inches. It is core. It lost 1 wound and no longer degrades, and it got an extra attack up to 5 attacks. So those are all the same as the Galatas. The spear shooting now is flat 3, which is sweet.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Big deal. The spear melee profile also changed. Instead of it being 6+3, it's now D3+3, which is way better.
Yeah, way better.
Your average goes from 4 wounds to 5 wounds.
Yeah.
That. So,
It did lose the what's it called? The impaling lunge ability.
Yep. Yeah.
But still, like,
a couple more to plus big deal. I'd rather have the better profile.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it lost that little 1 or 2 mortals that it might do, but it has gained a lot more damage and extra attack. You put Eternal Penitent on that. This thing is a bit of a blender in combat. It always kind of was. Again, delivery was the thing. Its shooting was always pretty unreliable. And you can put a Drathix on this guy now.
Yeah. Like, I don't know if he's better than the Galatas in terms of, like, survivability, because you can almost put a Galatas on the table and walk him up, and he'll probably live longer. He will live longer than the Achilles. So, but they're both very attractive options to take.
Yeah, so he's only 5 up in vuln, so it's a little bit more fragile. And, of course, a couple of Eradicators might punk this guy right off the table.
That's going to be the answer to everything. It's just, if they have 16 Eradicators, then I guess I'm
Like,
screwed.
it's like the 3-up Castellan, like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
It's just going to be everywhere.
Okay, so base cost with the Spear and the Lastrum Bolters is still 160. 10 points for Flamers and 10 points for a Drathix. So it went up to about 180 then, loaded with the Drathix.
A Drathix went down, I think, 5 points a gun.
Yeah, so it's 10 points extra. So it was 170, I think. Is it 170?
No,
Yeah, it's 10 points
15 point
each.
upgrade for the Drathix now.
10 points each. Yeah. And
No,
it gets one to Drathix?
No, you can take 1 each.
Oh, one each.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so it has a gun on like each of its fists. And it can swap the Lastrum out for either the Flamer or the Drathix.
So, yeah, okay. So it's roughly the same points as the...
Yeah, so he's got slightly less attacks. He kind of does more damage per attack. He's got a higher strength. I think he's strength 12 or something like that. So a little bit better than the strength 7. And he's got better shooting, depending on what weapon you take, for 10 points more. But he's not as hard to kill. So it's like, what do you need, right? What do you need? What do you want? Yeah.
Like, neither of them are bad. One's more survivable. The other one does more damage. It's really, if you think you can get out the table, if you're going to deep strike them, maybe that's an option. So yeah, it's really just choice. I don't really think there's a bad option between these two.
Yeah. And for sure, this guy can kill vehicles much more reliably than the Galatas at strength 7. So he's strength 14, I think the chat's saying. So he can kill those light vehicles wounded on 2s.
Yeah, no.
All right. Cool. Well, I'm super excited to get some dreads on the table just to see, just for funsies. And that's going to be cool. And I think Eternal Penitent also giving them reroll charges makes that delivery a little bit more palatable.
It'd be nice if they made in the Codex, or in the, because it won't be in the Codex, it would be in the Forgeworld book. If they made Eternal Penitent cost points instead of CP, just like they've been doing with like the Marine stuff. Like you'd pay extra points to give them the extra attack.
Whenever a Codex comes
might.
out.
Well, yeah, but that's what I mean. Like, will they be in the Codex? Oh, I don't know. Maybe.
We'll find out, I guess.
Yeah, whenever that is.
it's it would be nice also if the Imperious banner gave Dreads extra attacks, but anyway, it's another topic. Okay, let's talk about one of my favorite units, the Dick Bikes, or otherwise known as the Agamatus Custodians. And I think the best thing about the Agamatus Custodians now is they've become basically just like normal bikes with different weapons. Because for all intents and purposes, they are exactly the same as Virtus Praetors, but their weapons cost different and they do different things. But they used to cost more than Virtus Praetors, which is annoying. So all the weapon costs basically coming down has kind of made it a choice of, okay, do you want Virtus Praetors or do you want Agamatus? They're basically the same, but you choose which weapon you want. Now, there are some play implications with the Agamatus because they're longer and, the stupid circle bases are obnoxious and annoying. But, in terms of functionality. Okay, so basically they're unchanged. One of the trends I saw was these rules did not reprint Misericordia or the Lance profiles. They just assumed you would be taking it from the Codex. I don't know if you guys noticed that. They don't reprint those things at all.
I noticed that.
I think that's just you future-proofing the book. In case they change anything in the Codex, it just says reference the Codex for XYZ rules.
Yeah, like these, it doesn't even say. It says this person is armed with an interceptor lance, and then there's just no profile for it. So, it's almost like you must have the Codex to play these rules.
Which, I mean, you kind of need the Codex to play them anyway.
Yeah, what a way to sell.
Yeah. Okay, so the base cost for these guys is down to 95, which is great. That's basically the cost of a Virtus Praetor these days, down from 100. And the Adrathics basically are an extra 5 points on top of that. So the base cost reducing makes an Adrathic bike now 100 points. And the key about the Adrathic on these guys, if you don't read it carefully, is that they are strength 6 minus 3 damage, which is a huge difference between being strength 5 minus 3 damage, especially if you're shooting at toughness 5. So that's one of the things about the Dick Bikes is the strength 6 can make a big difference.
For sure.
Yeah, deal. The other thing about the Dick Bikes, which I think is kind of going under the radar a bit, is that the Las Pulsars came down significantly in cost.
Halved.
Like 20 points or something like that?
Points.
110 Pulsar bike.
Yeah, so the gun itself used to be 30 points, which was crazy. Actually was more than that. It was more than that before. And now they're down to 15 points.
Big change.
So
yeah, they were 35 points. Yeah, they were 35 points before.
Yeah. So the last Pulsar as a weapon always intrigued me because it was always like a jack of all trades kind of gun. It was just good against everything. It had the volume of shots, it had the high strength, decent AP, and decent damage. Problem before was that it was just held back by it costing an insane amount of points. Now that it's only 110, you're only paying 15 points on top of a regular bike for this, which I think actually makes it a very tempting weapon option. And for me personally, it's actually more tempting than the Adrathic.
I think it fills some gaps more than Adrathic does, especially if you're running Adrathic on other things.
Well, even like if you start mathing it out, against like if like hypothetically, let's say you're shooting against Blade Guard veterans or shooting against like some kind of Gravis unit, the Laz actually outperforms the Adrathic against Blade Guard ever so slightly, and it's about the same against Gravis. And then when you add in a potential Feel No Pain on those guys, because Marines can get that very easily now with the Apothecary, the Laz actually ends up edging out the Adrathic.
Yeah, it's twice the number of shots. Yeah.
Twice the number of shots. D3 damage isn't that big of a deal when you're shooting at 3-1 models. Because you have a 1 in 9 chance of it taking 3 shots, but you also have a 1 in 3 chance of it taking 1 shot. So the math there is significantly better than shooting against like a 2-1 model or shooting against like anything else. I think, and the last Pulsar also covers a lot of the other weaknesses of the Custode army, like the Chaos Greater Demon Monster Mash list, for example. Something that at least throughout early 9th has been very difficult for Custodes to play into, just because they just can't kill it fast enough. Those Las Pulsars, like a unit of 6 Las Pulsar bikes, will pick up like 1.5 Greater Demons turn just with shooting. The way to look at them is your shooting with that bike is basically an Alaris hitting something in combat.
Yeah. So like a 5-man unit shooting is putting out, 20 Alaris attacks. It's like you were in combat.
It's literally like shooting Alaris attacks at somebody, and then you charge them as a bike afterwards.
Yeah, so I think that's super compelling now. The price, it's still like, no one's going to argue it's not expensive, but it's way cheaper than it was, and it does fill a gap.
It's expensive, yes, but it's justifiable. Whereas before at 130 or 135, whatever it was, that was
stupid. And that was before 9th when they would get the -1 to hit when they moved as well. It's just like the worst.
But now that they're hitting on 2s even on the move, like suddenly, like this actually becomes way more tempting.
Yeah. All right. Okay, and they are core, of course. So I think if people are having troubles with some heavy shooting and you like playing them bikes, you should think about getting some dick bikes, because dick bikes where it's at, I reckon.
Yeah, and then you can tell people
yeah, everyone's gonna need some dick bikes. All right, cool. The next unit, maybe one of the more popular units in our army right now, the Venatari. So these guys got off like bandits. So first of all, they are core, which was obvious. They did not go change in points. In fact, all their loadouts became cheaper, so they're just 55 points no matter what you take. The buckler now, instead of giving ignore AP 1, just now gives them the 2-up save that they've always coveted, which is great. And that was perhaps the only downside to Venatari that has always been argued since they were first released. People thought it was a typo that they had 3-up save. And then they've tried to make the lance a bit better. So the lance is now gives you +1 attack in combat, and another fuck you D3 is flat 2 in combat. And it shoots just as well as the pistol, except you can't superior fire patterns it, and it's assault instead of pistol, and it's a shorter range. But it's still 6-2/2. So you don't give up too much in the shooting, and now in combat +1 attack with flat 2 damage, all for 55 points. Yeah.
So, like, again, we're seeing the continuation of the internal balance with Forgeworld becoming a lot better. Like, there's actually a compelling case to take the Spear Venatari now, whereas before there was really no reason to ever consider them. Like, fuck you D3, the shooting's good. The extra attack actually really helps them out a lot. Up to 4 attacks with the Spear.
Yeah.
And then with the pistol, it's still like 4 shots a guy with superior fire patterns, and they have the 2-up save, so that helps them out a lot too. It's even to the one, like, in my opinion, before I felt they were like incredibly overhyped, because whenever I tried playing them, they like would come down, shoot into a marine unit, barely do anything, and then just die. Now it's like, well, it's suddenly like Marines lost a lot of their easy access to transhuman on the non-Primaris stuff, and they got cheaper, and they have 2+ saves innate now. So it's just, I feel like it edges them far enough in the other direction where I'm gonna seriously start considering taking them again.
Yeah. My experience has been different from yours. Venatari have always performed extremely well. They were surprisingly hard to kill, despite them not seeming very hard to kill. And now they're just better. And so I always chewed off all my spears to replace them with pistols and bucklers. So now I have 6 Venatari sitting over there with spears that I might well have to assemble just for funsies. 2 units, doing slightly different things, going after slightly different targets. Very mobile, infantry, scramblers and all those sorts of things. Recon, like, really, really good unit for us. That's generally, nice to have the mobility that the jump pack guys have. Yeah, Venatari got off really good.
They to me, like, we still have other stuff to cover, but like, to me, Venatari probably got off the best out of everybody, in my opinion.
Well, they just got better and didn't get worse.
Yeah, like, for no reason. Like, they're already pretty good. They just go so much better.
Chris hates Venatari, and so when I told him that they got this much better, he was just like, he was not happy.
He plays Sisters. He can't be upset about anything.
He just gets to ignore AP too. I don't know why he's complaining.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to lump together the Pallas and the Caladius and the Cronus. Basically, these are 3 vehicles. They did not get core. They all lost their -2 to charge, as we expected, but we also expected them to lose fly, but they did not. Suck it, Marines.
Like that triggers me in so many different ways.
So despite being grav tanks, they did not lose fly.
Palace got cheaper, I think.
It lost 10.
10? Yeah, 10 points.
Did the Palace get cheaper?
Yeah,
it
it
got
did.
10 points cheaper. Now it's 90 points?
No.
No.
It was 95
95
before. It didn't change.
95. I thought it
I'm
was
pretty sure it
105.
didn't change.
Oh,
It went down points. It went down 10 points for sure.
Pretty sure it didn't, but okay, we'll check that. It's sub 100
Either
points,
way.
but I think it was sub 100 points. Okay, the chat. I'm wrong. The chat saying it's 10 points cheaper. Okay, cool. So that's good.
Thank you, chat. Yeah, Cladius, like, I didn't like them before. I still don't like them.
Yeah. They didn't gain anything. All they did was lose. Like the Cladius just lost the -2 to being charged, then that's it.
It's still the same points. And like now it compares even more unfavorably to the Telemon, which we'll get to in a second. There's just very little reason to take a Cladius right now.
The issue between Caladius and Telemon has been movement, and then that kind of 30 to 40 point difference. Because the guns are fairly similar, so it's like, yeah, that comparison has gotten a bit worse. We're coming to Bertha in a second. The Cronus went down from 265 to 250. I don't know if that makes it particularly playable because it's still 18 wounds and you can't hide it.
Points before it's playable. But like the other thing with the vehicles that like kind of makes me salty is that the Lastrum cannon didn't go to 2 damage. So like, what is the point of this gun? Because like in the fluff, it's supposed to be a Space Marine killer, but it just does not do that.
Kills Space Marines.
Yeah, it's weird that heavy bolters went to 2 damage, but these stronger Lastrum cannons didn't go to 2 damage. So that is a bit annoying. Yeah. Can you imagine though if Aquilon went to 2 damage on the Lastrum bolters?
Ooh. Yeah, no, I would take Lastrum guns all the time.
So maybe there's some reasoning to that, but anyway.
Who knows? Codex is still. It could still happen.
Yeah. So generally, I think the Palace getting cheaper is great. As it inches closer to Rhino cost, it just gets better and better. Now all we need is for it to like carry like a 3-man unit, and it would be like it would be so good.
Glorious.
It's probably never going to get the transport ability. But in fact, I'm not sure how one guy fits in there to begin with to drive it, but there you go.
They lay down.
They're really good in Heresy if you play that. So
yeah, there you go. See, they're good when they were relevant in the Heresy.
Yeah.
All right. Now let's move on to Bertha, the Telemon. Okay. So the Telemon had dropped out of my list recently because it just wasn't doing enough for me for the points. It was hard to kill, but people weren't trying to kill it, so which then doesn't really matter. And so it had dropped out of my list painfully for a while, but it's just gone back in my list just because I love playing the Telemon, and there's been some compelling changes. One of the things that changed was the Spiculous launcher just changed to when you don't shoot twice anymore, it just goes to heavy 10. It's a small difference. It means your target priority may be slightly different. Generally, I shot all 10 at the same thing anyway, so maybe not a big deal, but it is a change. The plasma projectors, which are basically flamers, went to 12 inches from 8. The fist now, which is a great change, just give you +1 attack per fist. So now you don't need to take 2 of them to have the +1 attack. So now if you just take the hybrid Telemon, you're going up to 5 attacks right there, 6 with Eternal Penitent. So that's already a great change for the hybrid. And it did not lose. It's still T8, 4++, 6+++, and now it also got -1 damage native, which is amazing. And it is not core, though, not like the other dreads, which is an interesting choice.
Yeah, I wonder why.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they don't consider it kind of like a Dreadnought. I mean, it's a lot tougher than the other dread. It's kind of almost like a mini knight. Yeah. Do you think that's going to end up biting us in the future? I mean, it's impossible to know the loss of core there.
Who knows?
Yeah, it's hard to know.
Cord might be shield captains. Trajan might just give rerolls to everybody. Like, who knows what they're
Yeah,
gonna do.
yeah.
Could be a typo. Who knows?
Okay, so there are a bunch of points changes, basically, and it's a little bit confusing, but we'll put it out. So it is 260 base cost, and that's with the twin accelerators and the spickless launcher. So the spickless launcher is always in there, okay? It's because you have to take it. So it's 260 for base, okay? That's basically unchanged from before. If you want the storms now, you got to add 15 per storm. So you go up to 290 for double storm, which is a lot. If you want fists, they are free, so you can swap a fist out with an accelerator for free. So you can do a hybrid accelerator with fist for 260. That's down from 270. If you take a fist and a storm cannon, that's now 275, which is down from 285. And double fist is just 260, which is down from 270. So it's pretty decent. I mean, the double storm is kind of not that compelling. I think it's about the same as it was before. It was more expensive. It was always more expensive. But now, with the Marines and the fist giving you that extra attack already, I don't know. I feel like hybrid with the accelerator or even double fist might be the way to go, depending on how much other shooting you have.
I think hybrid with the accelerator is probably the way to do it. Because taking the double fist just gives you one extra attack that can do 4 damage, whereas the accelerator shoots 4 times at 2 damage apiece, so that's 8 potential damage. Granted, you do get another flamer with the fist, which is kind of nice, but I'd rather just have the other gun.
Yeah, with Eternal Penitent now, I mean, the difference between doing 6 attacks and 7 attacks is like doing 24 damage and 28 damage is like not a huge deal.
Yeah, adequately.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I don't know if it became... Like, I was already not, like, even before, I was already not taking the Telemon anymore, and this didn't really change my mind.
You're not compelled, you know what I'm saying?
No, I like the little Dreadnoughts more. And you can almost get 2 of them for the price of him, so...
Almost, but not really.
Almost. Not really,
50%,
but almost.
1.5.
Well, he's 260. You're like 60 points short.
Yeah, like if it was double the Dreadnoughts, then yeah, for sure. But it's not quite. It's like, as like Devin's saying, it's kind of making your decisions more difficult in a way because things are kind of good and you're like, oh, I want this, and as a Custodes player, you are probably finding you're hitting your points barrier very quickly and you still have a lot of things you want to put in your list.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Telemon is... It has a couple knocks, in my view. It's not OPSEC. Yeah, it's really hard to kill, but like not really if you have Eradicators. I know I keep coming back to Eradicators, but like that's the meta right now. So like Marines are just gonna laugh at this thing. Eldar are just gonna laugh at this thing. Anything that can dish out a ton of mortal wounds, which is already good against Custodes, is gonna have an even easier time killing the Telemon. So it's good. I just think it doesn't bring enough offensively to the table to justify its cost.
Yeah, I think very similar to the other Dreads, you need to hit first with it for it to really play an impact. I think if you just want Bertha sitting at the back on an objective, then you could get better things for way less points than the Telemon for that. Like Sagittarium, for example. So you need to, I think if you're going to use the Telemon, you got to push it up and you got to hit first. If you get hit first, as Devin said, you're probably, like, the Telemon's not going to survive that long.
It's, for me, on top of not doing the damage, the lack of OPSEC really hurts it, because, like, my whole playstyle with Custodes is I just hyper aggressively shove everything into your face turn 1, like bikes. I have my unit Deep Strike King with the banner and all that stuff, where my whole idea is I'm just going to leave my objectives, so nobody's going to be sitting on my objectives, and I'm just going to be sitting on your objectives. I score points, you get nothing. Whereas the Telemon runs up, and if like one intercessor lives, he's just like, haha, this is mine now, screw you. And you're like, oh, my 200-point Dreadnought did nothing.
Yeah, and now we're seeing a lot of weird, like, spreading of OPSEC, like... the ability to have OPSEC may become I mean, it was already good that most of our army has it, but that 1 or 2 units that doesn't has it, you really notice it when it affects you.
Yeah.
So it might become more of a thing. Now we got like banners giving OPSEC and rules giving OPSEC and, whole armies getting OPSEC.
And rules taking away OPSEC.
Yeah. Reavers can take it away with a stratagem. Necrons have that Psychomancer guy that can do it.
Yeah. Okay, so there's Bertha. Okay, so we come to the big flyers. So the Orion basically kind of got both the flyers lost attacks for some reason, melee attacks. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. They're not core, obviously, and we don't need to talk too much about the Orion. I think it's like still 500 points, something like that. So the Aries, which has had a lot of playtime recently, did change. So it got its melee attacks nerfed, like the Orion. It just confirms that the big blaze cannon is indeed blast. So it's still D3 shots, and it's not core, and it went up 20 points to 450 points from 430, which is, I know it's pretty expensive already. That maybe just puts it over the line in terms of expense. And the bombs have changed. So interestingly, the bombs used to be horde killers, so you could drop like 20 D6 bombs and just like kill a whole bunch of models. And now it's changed to you pick a spot, and within 6 inches of that spot on a 4-up, you do D3 mortal wounds to every unit. I mean, you can use that every turn.
Yeah, spot you flew over.
Yeah.
It's better against bumps, but like the whole point of bombs is to clear out big units. The bombs went from reliable damage to I have to roll 4 pluses. It's basically like an orbital strike now. Which, like, the Aries, even before, I felt it was incredibly overrated. Like, this was a plane that, in like 1/3 of the missions, you couldn't even deploy and have it do anything turn once. It just doesn't fit in a deployment zone. And I know there was a whole bit of controversy surrounding that recently, the whole Aries gate thing.
There was?
Yeah, I know. I'm not going to get into that because I think that horse has been beaten to death over the last couple of weeks. Point is, I don't think most people will let you deploy and have it actually act turn 1 in a Dawn of War deployment scenario. And even then, like, it kills vehicles kind of good, but like other things in the Custode army also kill vehicles better.
Especially.
And problem with the Aries, and again, I sound like a broken record with this, is that 6 Eradicators show up and then shoot down your 450 point plane in 1 turn. And like, yeah, you can turn off rerolls. Yeah, you can make the -1 strength, but like, they just they don't care. They're just
yeah. I think you could make an argument, and certainly it has performed for lots of people with results. But now with the more Eradicators and the bigger units, and you got ATVs and I don't know, and you got sisters lining you up with like +4 damage, multi-meltas. Like, I just don't see it being quite as good anymore.
Even before, like, yeah, some people were having some success with it, but I don't believe it actually won a Aries has not won a GT, and that is the metric. And is this, like, there's a big difference in a unit's effectiveness between being like a reliable, like, 4-1 or 5-1 at an event unit, or like, is this unit going to help your army go 6-0? Which the Aries, yes, it had its uses, but it was incredibly restrictive in what it was good against. And if you ran into a bad matchup, either just because your opponent could just ignore it and not care, or they would just kill it incredibly quickly, you were basically playing 400 points down in an army that already does not have a lot of models. So, like, I just think there were other things that did its job while still being useful in other ways. That I don't like the Aries. It's I
think you always run into the syndrome of one big model syndrome. It's the same reason why we don't ally in knights and stuff like that. Like, it's like, we're already an expensive army with few models. You try not to take up a quarter of your army with just one model.
Yeah.
Like, it can't be that good unless it's literally like, the second coming of the Emperor for 500 points. I don't know.
It's definitely not the second coming of the Emperor.
Yeah. And the Emperor wouldn't be able to fly 60 inches, though, but who knows? Okay, so I think I mean, if you were set on the Aries before, you may still be convinced to take it. Because it's 20 points, whatever. 20 points in the Custodes list is usually not a huge deal. And the bomb, arguably, in a lot of circumstances these days where you're not maybe playing 200 gaunts or anything, may be slightly more useful and may do more mortals over the course of the whole game if it survives for 5 turns. But I think if you weren't using the Aries, I'm not sure that you're going to go out and spend $500 on an Aries now to slap it in your list, especially with some of the other things we've talked about tonight. So, yeah, I think that's the thing on the Aries, which is unfortunate. I never got to put it on the table.
Just pray you're not playing Dawn of War, and you should be good. Otherwise, just
And that whole Dawn of War situation obviously just needs FAQ, but it is silly. And if you are taking it to a tournament, make sure you ask your TO what their stance on that topic is.
Yeah, and this is just generally good advice for anybody. It's not Aries specific. If you have a unit that has a really weird edge rules case with it, just reach out to the TO ahead of time, get that question answered before the event, because you don't want to show up with your unit and then have somebody be like, yeah, you can't use it on this deployment map, and then the TO rules against you when it just feels bad. Whereas, if you get the ruling ahead of time that, yes, you can do this, or no, you can't. If you can't, you're not going to bring it. If you can, that if somebody calls you on it, you just say, the judge ruled in my favor ahead of time. So it just saves a lot of headaches and a lot of drama later on down the road.
Yeah,
so.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, always get these things pre-approved, especially when it's been so out there in the general public that there's this controversy. So.
Yeah. Actually.
Yeah. Okay, so that is the end of the datasheet review. What I'm going to do now is so Diogo, you've been working on. You're still heavy on Marines, I presume.
Yeah.
So
tons of those.
So what do you think of our rules? How does it change? Does it change anything you're doing? What are we going to see from the Marine side? Because we're going to see a lot of Marines, obviously.
So before, I played probably Devin, I don't know how many times at tournaments anymore. At least against this Custodes, at least 3 times, something like that. Something close to that, right? And each time I've tried something different, different approaches, and I've realized that for Custodes, you really just have to spread them out, because if you try to fight them one-on-one in one condensed area, you're gonna lose because they're just too resilient. If you charge in with one unit, they're going to swooping dive with another one. They're going to shut off rerolls. They're going to transhuman, yada, yada, yada. So, I've been kind of gearing my list, not specifically to beat Custodes, to beat everybody, but the way I play, I have to keep in mind that Custodes are a real thing. So now, I have a lot of Blade Guard, which you're probably going to see a lot of. And with the new Apothecary, it really helps with the Custodes matchup, because while they... what are they called? Oh my god, I just forgot the name of that own unit. The guys that just went up to 2 damage, the Aquilon, that went to 2 damage. Other guys are still D3, and now D3 going into my 3 wound Blade Guard that have 4 bin balls and 6 up feel no pain and can bring back bottles back, works a lot better in my favor in that scenario. But the rest of my army, my troops and stuff like that, my assault intercessors that are 2 wounds and stuff, they're going to get mopped up now by all the 2 damage stuff. And if this is any indication that more stuff in the Custodes book's going to become 2 damage, then you really have to either really just go Gravis heavy lists, or take the hit or try to play around it. But Custodes only got harder to play against now, and I don't know if I'm going to necessarily change a lot in my list specifically for Custodes, because I hate catering to one army, because then I'm going to cater to Custodes and then just get destroyed by whatever the other army is, right? So it's I don't know, it's a tough call. I have to play against it. I can theory craft it all I want in my head, but I really need to play a game probably against Devin to really find out what how it matches up now, especially with a lot of the new stuff. I think Death Watch are really good now. If you thought Eradicators were really good, we've been talking, they're even better when they have a Blade of Wounds that can take shots before you get to the Eradicators. So it's even better.
Yeah. So what are you looking? Are you looking to take up any of these things? What kind of list are you looking at these days, Devin? I know you were playing pretty bike heavy beforehand.
I'm still going to be playing bike heavy. I still think it's the best list archetype to go with right now. The Dick Bike's getting significantly better. Actually opens up a lot more options. So for me, the thing that there's basically two ideas I have kicking around in my head. The first one is to basically keep the same basic core list idea where I had 2 bike units and a Terminator bomb, and then Trajan the bike captain, the random little troop unit, and a banner. The other idea that I had was just throwing the Terminators out entirely, taking 2 bike units, going hard in on them, probably Las Pulsars, and then adding in a Coluxus Assassin with the remaining points that I have left over. Reason I say that is the thing that I've been finding the most success with Custodes is, like, as soon as you acknowledge you have a very small number of units, like, the better off you're going to be. So the idea I have is to use the bike captain who just doesn't die, and the Coluxus who also just doesn't die to most things. Use them to, like, charge units I don't really want to deal with at that particular point in time. Charge them, lock them down, they're not doing anything for a turn. Bikes focus on 1 or 2 things, kill them. My next turn, fall back out of combat, kill the next things, rinse and repeat, so on and so forth. Like a very more methodical way of running through an army. Yes, having a fewer number of units is a downside, but there are ways to play around it. So that's the other thing I want to try. So I'll probably end up playing them both, and I'll see which one ends up working out better.
Yeah. I do definitely with the Agamatis getting it cheaper, different weapon options, that does open up the bike list kind of archetype, as you say. The Clex is an interesting idea I've been thinking of. I wish we could... one thing we were talking about today, actually, other than a kind of crazy discussion on females in 40K, was I wish we could... the option, if it was there, of taking, like, a sister's HQ, so Alea, just by itself. She has this nice little -1 to hit stratagem, which is pretty cool. But I've used it a couple of times when my sisters happen to be in the mix somehow. But so it's a nice little thing. -1 to hit in combat is a pretty big, like, nerf to a unit's efficacy. Funnily enough, I've gone back to the archetype I was running, kind of 9.4, 0.8 or something like that, where I was running, still trying to run with a couple of units of sisters, just 1 rhino, but now I've got my Aquilon with the Drathic, I've got my Dick Bikes back in, I've got my Venatari unit, and I've got a Telemon, and then my usual HQs and the banner. And it's amazing you could fit all that in. There's a lot of hitting power there. And I still got the little units of sisters and girls in the Rhino to run around. I could infiltrate 1 unit of sisters for, like, what's that secondary called? Scramblers.
Scramblers?
And then the other archetype was actually to drop the sisters and then run a Guardian unit or a Sag unit. And so you drop your number of total units, but as you say, admitting that you have to admit that you're a low unit count army, but adding another hard-hitting unit. So when I first started playing with the sisters, they really helped with screening, board control, things like banners and doing all sorts of things, and occasionally might do something anti-psychic. But their main purpose was there to just give me more units. And so I wonder now, though, so much more hitting power, whether we need that at all. But just something to try out if we ever get to play games again. So that's kind of my current kind of list thinking, and really just need to test. These things all look really good on paper. We need to test. Yeah.
Well, there is an event coming up, Devin. I don't know if you're going.
One in Barry next weekend?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going.
There we go. First real test.
Yeah, it's up in Barry. Is Scary running that, or?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, yes? No, he's attending it.
I don't know. I actually don't know if the new Forgeworld rules are in play. Rickman didn't know when I asked him earlier, so I'll have to message Chris.
Oh yeah, because when's the event?
Saturday.
This Saturday?
It's this Saturday.
Not even released till Saturday.
7. Well, yeah, but, like, the book is out. you can just go find pictures of it on the
Yeah,
internet.
sure. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so that's our coverage. We're going to go to the question channel. If you got questions on the chat, please put it in. All right, guys. Hang on a second. All right, got a bunch of questions here, and hopefully we've answered most of them. Okay. So Aquilon, are they the best unit? I don't know if they're the best unit, but I think they just got made a lot hittier than Alaris, if that's what you were taking those guys for. They already were kind of with the strength 10, -4. A lot of things don't have invuls in combat, but now they're even more. And it's maybe like, sure, if you roll a bunch of D3s and you spike some 5s, 6s, that feels really good. But the opposite can happen, and what I want more than that is to know that these guys are going to do this damage, you know? And that's what the flat damage gives you, less variance. And I think if you ask a lot of Warhammer players who kind of know what they're doing, they always will choose the option with less variance than the one where they could spike or one where they could crash. Okay. So what's your opinion of the Dreadnoughts? Will they finally see play? I think they're going to see play. Whether they're going to be the best or not, I don't know. But you're going to see people trying it out because they're going to be super fun now.
Yeah, part of me just wants to run like a Mimi 8 Dreadnought army.
Well, I only have 3, one of each, so I could run 3 Dreads. All right.
Like 3 Galatas, 2 Achilles, and 2 Telemons or something.
Yeah, that's a lot of money.
I mean, is it though?
All right. Is there a place for Guardians or are SAGs with Misericordia the definitive troop? Well, I think we addressed that. I think it's just what do you need your unit to do? Nobody's going to argue that a unit of 5 dudes with shields is going to be freaking impossible to kill. Especially sitting in a rune or something. Like,
Yeah, out of line of sight, holding an objective. Yeah.
So if that's what you need that unit to do, then Shield Guardians. If you want a unit to engage and shoot and do stuff, then SAGs are obviously better shooters than a bunch of sword and board guys. So maybe the real question is, do you see a use for spear guys anymore?
I think it's like a discount bomb. If you want to fill up a troop choice, you take like 10 guys with spears and like Vexel Homer them in. You can shoot 40 times with bolters and charge something. It's not horrible.
Yeah, and they have the spear stratagem too, right?
Yeah, plus 1 wound. It's not like it's good.
Yeah, so it's like a cheaper bomb. And if you're trying to run a patrol and you need a troop unit, well, there you go. So there you go. So there is still some use for those guys. Okay. Yeah, heavy's not so competitive. Okay, does the Dread Aquilon getting better help push Dread Host? Okay, do Dreads and Aquilon getting better push Dread Host forward?
So Dread Host, if you're running like the Dreadnought heavy army, I think yes, Dread Host is probably the way to go. Otherwise, like Shadow Keepers is just too good. Like just being -1 strength when you need it. Because like the nice thing with that, especially with the kinds of units you're seeing pop up now in lists, like Blade Guard, for example, like you could charge with Blade Guard into like Terminators or something. They're winning you on like 4s. You Shadow Keeper, not the winning you on 5s, which is a big change in the math. Like you go from like losing most of a unit to like he just kind of tickles you a little bit, and then you murder him in return. So like having that -1 strength, especially if you're running bikes at all, is just too good to pass up.
Yeah, I don't think that this rule update changes the argument about what shield host you do. I think you're choosing whether you want to play a hyper aggressive, all in kind of Dread Host style, or whether you're going to play with the defensiveness of Shadow Keepers or one of the other shield hosts. And I don't think any of these rules necessarily changes that. And I agree with Devin. I think if you're playing Dreads, then you need to get them where they need to go, and Dread Host is one way of doing that. Yeah. Okay, how viable is a mixed unit of spear and pistol Venatari? I never even thought about doing that. I don't think you would do that.
So the the pistol Venatari are good because you get to use superior fire patterns to double the shots on all their pistols. And the thing with stratagem use is the bigger your unit, the more bang for your buck you're getting with the strat. So using superior using the strat on like 2 or 3 pistols is not really worth the command point. Using it on 5 or 6 pistols is most definitely worth the command point.
Yeah, I don't see a situation where you would want to mix those 2 weapon loadouts. I see a situation where you might play 2 units and then you're just firepowering one of them and they're doing different things, attacking different targets, but
that would make sense.
Yeah. Okay, we won't see as much tanks now without the -2 to charge. I'm not sure that was actually a huge deal. I can't think of the last time somebody charged my hover tank unless they had no other option. So I think you won't see as much tanks now for many other reasons, not the loss of -2 to charge.
But the last time I played a Custode tank was back in like right before New Year's. Actually, it was a small little funsies tournament. I just brought the Mech Custodes list to for just hilarity, and I ended up winning.
All right. So talking about the last pulsars, which we talked about already. Dreadnought viability. Yep. And so we talked about all these kind of things. Okay. Do all the units got the OST keyword? I'm not sure what that means. Okay. What is our best unit now? Well, the cool thing is, I don't think we have a best unit. I think things have become, as Devin said, more internally balanced, and that actually is a better place to be. I don't want just one unit and everybody just has to take 3 of those. It's boring.
Yeah, I think it's as far as the Forgeworld goes, it's probably a toss between Aquilons, Dick Bikes, and Venatari. As far as the entirety of the Custode range goes, like I can't seriously point to a single unit that is just like, this is the best unit that you must take at least 3 of.
Yeah.
And not to mention that, 3 of any of our units would probably be your whole army, so...
Or close to it.
Okay, Venatari new hotness, now they have 2-up save. Well, definitely helps. So, do you guys think 2-up save is better than ignore -1 AP with a 3-up save?
Yes.
Yeah, it's totally better. There's no argument.
Yes.
There was no scenario where 3-up save with ignoring 1.
Julia.
All right. When the Codex comes out, whenever that's going to be, do you think more emphasis should be given to core units in our list building, given that the Telemon and other non-Dreadnought units will not have core? I don't know.
I think those are the units we're just taking anyway.
Yeah.
So the thing with core, at least the Space Marine experience with core, is that like it just incentivized you to take units that you already wanted to take. Like, I could take the tanks, and even if they had the rerolls, like, yeah, they're kind of neat. Now there's just no reason to take them. Like, it just seems like GW's like wanting to get vehicles out of the game for some reason. That's what it feels like to me.
Yeah, it's interesting. Obviously, just adding a keyword allows them to fiddle with that in the future very easily. Okay, FAQ, these things all lost core, these things all gain core. Easy peasy.
As far as a balance perspective goes, it almost feels like they're like 2 years behind the curve on that. Because like, when did vehicles get really good? When the Castellan died, and that was 2 years ago. And then vehicles were good for like 6-8 months. And then other things came down, and then they just got eclipsed. And then GW nerfed them into the ground a year after that. So
yeah, but it's almost not like the core was meant to do anything. It's because most of the things you want to take have it. I think maybe in the future they can use it as an adjustment mechanism. I don't know. Who knows? But it just doesn't seem like the whole core thing has really made that big of a difference to anybody right now.
Yeah, it hasn't. It just means, like, before, like, maybe I would have taken a tank or 2. Now I'm just not even going to bother.
All right. Okay, so Hector Rex. As far as I remember, I think he's still 100 points and hasn't really changed very much. I gotta say, I didn't really look closely at his data sheet.
So the Inquisitor, including that in your list in 9th, I don't like, just because it locks you out of Abhor the Witch, which if you play like Chaos, Eldar, Knights, like enjoy your free 15 points.
Yeah.
Like the 3 denies is nice, but like if you take the Coloxes, if you take your sisters, like you have enough psychic defense with
Yeah, I learned that in my last game against Will and Death Guard, and that I actually have a lot of psychic defense if you're willing to spend some CP here and there, and you can really shut it down.
It's not that.
Okay. Okay, given the recent improvements to our 2 troop choices, Guardians with Shields and Sagittarium, do you feel that making a battalion instead of a patrol or a vanguard? Well, the problem is that all our elites also got really good. So, I don't know. I still feel like battalion is too many troops. Patrol...
I don't like the Vanguard just because it costs you CP in an army that really needs its command points to function properly.
Yeah. Patrol's probably still the way to go.
Really, the battalion question is, am I taking enough elites to justify having to take the 3 troops? Most of the time, that's going to be no. Because like even if you go like a double Terminator bomb, there's just so many things that just bend that over. So I think Patrol is still going to be the best way to play it.
Yeah, and really then the crunch just becomes elite slots in your Patrol, because you got the Vex, maybe a unit of Terminators.
Vex.
And then,
like really just goes Vexilla +1. So
yeah, and then you're stuck for elite slots. And if you were thinking about playing Sisters, unfortunately they're also elites, and so then you're kind of stuck playing Vanguard if you want to play more than 2 elite slots. But I think Patrol is I don't think it's worth going all the way for a battalion these days. Plus you need 2 HQs if you wanted to play a single HQ type list. So
well, I know for me, I'm playing 2 HQs anyway, just because Trajan is amazing, and the Bike Captain just has so much utility. So it's not the HQs; it's spending the extra 300 points on troops that's really making it hard for me.
All right, is the Palace now with its point drop a consideration for scoring things like engage on all fronts, line breaker, or is it better to go with Sisters or even Tempestus Scions? Yeah.
Or just 3 Venatari with spears.
Yep.
Like,
so some people have just been running, Shield Captain dropping in with like a little min unit of Guardians or whatever, or so those are options also to get you that Scramblers or Line Breakers. Okay, do you think you can be successful without a Vexilla?
I'm gonna say no. I know Yoshi has a different opinion on this.
I'm sure you can be successful.
That's true. I never took a Vexilla in the Stone Army.
I took it once. No, I think like if you have obviously there's a lot of uses for it. If you have a use for it, then yeah. But I'm sure you could be successful without one. It might be a little bit more difficult, obviously. But okay, like in my opinion, I think you can be successful. Is it easier if you have one to be successful? Yes.
Yeah, I think I don't think you can just say if you don't have a Vexilla, you're never going to win, because that's obviously not true.
Yeah, because then that would lead us to believe that the Vexilla is like you need this in your army in order to like win every time. Because then everyone's gonna know I'll just kill the Vexilla, and then now your army falls apart. No, because they're still probably gonna steamroll you.
Yeah.
In like most matchups.
Yeah, it's just for one dude with a good aura who can take traits and relics, and I mean, it's a lot of utility in one dude who's relatively cheap. So he's good in that way.
It's just he takes up an elite slot, and if you're taking a patrol, it really limits you to, you know what I mean? Like now you can't take 3 elites, so you can't have 2 bombs.
Yeah,
you only have 1.
I gotta say, Vexilla moving to HQ would be sick.
That'd be gross.
2 birds, 1 stone. Free up elite slot and take an HQ slot.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, guys. So that's it, and there's no questions on the stream. So thanks for joining me, Devin and Yoshi. Great to talk with you guys again. And thanks everybody for watching. Do subscribe and follow, and join our Discords right here, and follow us on Twitch. Thank you very much to our patrons for supporting what we do here. And the next show will be Wednesday night. there's the podcast, and I believe the topic, they had decided on the topic, but I can't remember it now. It's something, I think it's something to do with the Forgeworld book. Anyway, so join us on Wednesday night for the podcast, and thanks very much, everybody, and we'll see you next time.